Welcome to Shattered Reality with your hosts Kate Valentine and Fahrusha. Prepare to have your paradigms shifted and your truths questioned. And now, Shattered Reality.
Here we are at the 2017 Pine Bush UFO Fair, and we're all happy to be here, right?
I'll sit here and fill in the audience. So.
Okay, and I am here with Shattered Reality Podcast, and my name is Fahrusha, and over here is Miss Kate Valentine, and about twice a month we present people who are in edge science. Basically, we talk about UFOs, we talk about near-death experiences, and other cool things like remote viewing, and all that good stuff. So, today I have a short presentation having to do with theories of extraterrestrial evolution. All right? Now, before anybody gets all excited, these are only theories. But I will tell you that there are some very prominent people, including Stephen Hawking and Ridley Scott, who is the director of the Alien series and several other excellent movies. And both of those gentlemen tend to have much the same idea about the possibilities. We're not saying this is definite, all right? So before anybody gets all excited and thinks that I'm making a pronouncement, these are just theories. Okay, extraterrestrial evolution is a topic of great interest to me in a number of ways. The thought may be bizarre to many people, but perhaps it shouldn't be. There are 4 factors that come immediately to mind. First one, there are probably billions of planets in our very own Milky Way galaxy, and quadrillions of other telescopically visible galaxies, each with billions and billions of planets, okay? So the entire idea that we're the only ones in the universe, or in the multiverse, if there's actually more than one universe, is really, really very, very unlikely. Scientists disagree on how many other worlds might generate life, but few scientists at this point in 2017 really think that we're alone. By scientists, I don't mean necessarily technicians, I mean actual astronomers and cosmologists and so forth. Even the Vatican is very open to the concept of intelligent extraterrestrial beings. Now, that's the first point. Second point is some really great cosmological thinkers have posited the idea of Panspermia. I'm going to define that in a minute, including Dr. Chandra Wickramasinghe and the late Sir Fred Hoyle. Panspermia is defined by Google. Of course, we all go to Google for everything, right? But is defined by Google as the theory that life on Earth originated from microorganisms or chemical precursors of life present already in outer space, from which we were able to initiate life here on Earth when interacting with a suitable environment. Okay? Today, a scientist in the UK named Professor Milton Wainwright is sending up balloons to the stratosphere to discover microbial life from outer space. Now, Dr. Milton Wainwright was on Shattered Reality Podcast most recently, about a week ago, and he explained how he actually sends up these weather balloons about 40 kilometers up, 25 miles and further, and these weather balloons have attached to them basically cassette decks, and they're encased in a something that nothing can get into. And at the time they reach the proper altitude, he is able to let that cassette deck out, and on the tray of the cassette deck is something akin to a petri dish. He explained it a little better than I can, but the cassette deck comes out and things stick to it. Organisms that perhaps come down from space stick to it. At a certain point, he pulls it back in again, it hermetically reseals, and he brings it down to Earth. The interesting thing is that he has found organisms that have never been seen here on Earth. It doesn't mean they don't exist here on Earth, it just means they haven't been found yet on Earth. And these things are much too heavy to get up there on their own. So this is the basis of research currently on panspermia. Now, third, though it seems to me that much evidence points to the idea that Earth has been visited multiple times by possible extraterrestrials, thoughts and theories about extraterrestrial evolution do not depend for their validity on extraterrestrial visitation. You get that? Everybody on the same page with me? Because we don't have to have aliens walking around outside to believe that there are things in outer space that are evolving separate from us. The fourth factor is an open question. Would such life follow a set pattern similar to life on Earth, or would extraterrestrial evolution take an entirely different path, or could both of those ideas be true?
Well, at that point you have to define evolution.
Yes.
Look, one thing that we know for all life on Earth is that it evolves. The direction, the trajectory, the vector of that evolution is always a product of the conditions in which the evolution is taking place.
Right.
But evolution, the idea that things change over time, look, we know by the simple fact that we're here that a star died so that iron could be created that is the foundation of our blood. We don't have to theorize about the evolution of stars. We know what occurs.
Yes.
So evolution is predominant on Earth with all life forms, and here's the point. When I said it depends on your definition of evolution, evolution seems to be primarily focused on a species surviving. Survival, it really is the common trait of all life that we can see. The one thing all life has in common is it wants to survive. There's no reason to think that survival isn't the primary driving force in all life throughout the entire universe.
There's no disagreement there.
Yeah.
However, we might want to note, which is something that is a factor here, is that 90% of all life forms on the Earth that ever existed on the Earth are now extinct.
Well, I think the percentage is higher than that. Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so at least 90% we can say.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm going to talk about mostly deals with the fourth factor. Thank you, Mr. David Biedny. We're going to deal with the fourth factor, the open question of whether life would follow a particular trajectory or if it might be entirely different, okay? It has been rumored and openly stated that NASA and JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab, have quashed reports and evidence of life on Mars and other spheres in the universe that we have put landers on. Most prominently, I think of assertions made by Dr. John Brandenburg, formerly of NASA, about advanced life on Mars and of certain findings of primitive organisms called crinoids, visually identical to Earth organisms, discovered by Dr. Richard Hoover. Now, Dr. Richard Hoover was a 46-year veteran of NASA and an astrobiologist and inventor of the year in one of those years. He was given the title of inventor of the year. So clearly this guy was no fool. This is particularly important to the rest of my thinking on this subject of extraterrestrial evolution. Let me just close this part up here. Okay, and I brought this lovely picture for you to see of the crinoids on Mars. Okay? This is purportedly a fossil. Now, what NASA did with this fossil, NASA in the form of JPL, who sent the Explorer up to Mars, and you remember it walks around, it's still up there taking pictures and whatever, they destroyed it. They destroyed this fossil in order to do a chemical test on it, so that all evidence is now gone, finished. If the organism found by JPL on Mars is in actuality largely identical to those found on Earth, it seems to point to the idea that extraterrestrial life might always or often evolve in the same or a similar manner. One frequently discussed concept that follows in this direction is the controversial idea that some extraterrestrials who have purportedly visited the Earth are reptilians. Now, you know, this is a matter of reports. I personally have not seen any reptilians. That does not mean that they don't exist. But the theory goes something like this in any case. If the dinosaurs who once inhabited the Earth were not killed off by a comet or a large meteor which struck the Gulf of Mexico at the end of the Cretaceous period, would there perhaps have evolved into self-conscious bipedal beings who might roam the galaxy? And if so, is it not possible or indeed likely that on other suitable planets in the galaxy or beyond, such reptilians might actually exist? In fact, evolution following a similar model, evolution not follow a similar model everywhere? In this discussion somewhere, one must consider non-human, very intelligent life forms right here on Earth that have not developed with bilateral symmetry. I am thinking here of cephalopods, like squid and octopi. These are very, very intelligent beings, and their brains are not located in their heads like ours are. They have a brain that is in their entire nervous system, all over their bodies. And they have been proven time and again to be both highly intelligent and psychic, to have high psi functioning, okay? That might derail the similar evolution everywhere theory as the sole way that life could evolve. On the other hand, it is possible or likely that evolution through the cosmos looks nothing like earthly evolution. I'd say certainly that it is possible, and in certain circumstances probable, that the evolution went in a different direction. One probable circumstance resulting in a different evolutionary pattern might be an environment where the building blocks of life are not carbon-based or not dependent on water or oxygen. Life on Earth is carbon-based and requires water. Can we agree on that, by and large? Okay, good. Think about your definition of life. Think about each and every, how do you define life yourselves? Perhaps consciousness is a better definition of life than taking breath. Who or what is or could be conscious is a very, very long discussion. You know, is this ukulele stand conscious? Most of us wouldn't think of it as conscious, but if we were animists, we would think that everything is conscious, okay? Suffice it to say that Max Planck and the other founders of quantum physics all thought that consciousness was more fundamental than matter or energy in the physical universe. Got to think about that for a minute or two. But Are these ideas of evolution in the cosmos mutually exclusive? I don't think so. Ponder this. Perhaps life develops in a similar evolutionary pattern where carbon and water are available, and totally differently where they are not. I'm not stating conclusively that this is the case, but certainly it provides food, if not a feast, for thought. So just in closing here, this is, I think that the next group is coming in, but in closing, I just want to show some artists' renditions of what might the aliens look like. First of all, we have this picture somebody painted of the destruction of the dinosaurs, and you can see the comets coming in, or the meteors coming in on the poor dinosaurs. And here I have two pictures. This is what somebody apparently said that they saw involving an alien of a reptilian sort. And here's another one. This is, you can kind of see him on top of the other guy there. Now, here we have a tall, blonde, or Nordic type alien, which is actually the only kind I've ever seen. And I don't even know that this was a physical presence. It could have been a non-physical presence. Here we have an insectoid. Now, in my opinion, insectoids could be what's coming next, because shortly when all the people pass away and the large mammals go, who's going to come up next on the Earth? The insects. And will the insects be intelligent? Well, we look at some of the insects now that are somewhat intelligent, right? Bees and ants and other, well, these are mantis kind of insects. Yes?
One could easily make, not an argument, but a statement that insects are actually a much more successful species than humans by almost every metric.
That's true.
Right? I mean, in terms of, they've been here much longer than we have. Their biomass, take all the humans on Earth, put them on a scale, take all the insects on Earth, and put them on a scale. I think you'd find that they're probably at least 10 times more biomass of insects than humans. Certainly in terms of ants. Ants alone, it's 2 to 1, I believe, is the biomass ratio. So, you know, it really depends on your definition of what successful is, but I have to bring you back to this issue of the definition of evolution. I think I understand what your ideas are moving towards, but I think you have to, in order to make this a more cogent argument, you have to get to the point where you detach the notion of evolution as we have seen it with life on Earth. It's a separate issue than the idea of what evolution is. And again, I want to bring you back to this. If we assume for a moment that what is true to all life is an instinct for survival, the potential of success for that survival, that is the task of evolution. Evolution basically is pushing us towards that survival by, in effect, removing the elements of a species that will contribute to its downfall, that will basically not contribute to its propagation. That's really what evolution is. How does nature keep honing a life form so it is potentially more successful at surviving?
That's a biological life form you're speaking of, and I have nothing.
No, I'm not. No, it's not. I'm talking about all life, and this is the important point. I'm not talking just about biology. I'm saying that survival is intrinsic to all life, no matter what that life form is, not just biological.
If everything has consciousness, and the consciousness doesn't die, then it's a different thing.
But the problem is generalizations. The best scientist on Earth today has no clue of what consciousness is.
That's right.
So it's hard to create boundaries around something or containers around something that we have, and again, I think it's important to point this out, zero comprehension of. Zero. Not 1%, not 0.5%, zero. It is perhaps the greatest mystery facing humans.
It's the hard problem of consciousness and philosophy is what you're speaking of.
Yeah.
And it does exist, but it does imply that we're more than our physical bodies, and that a star could be conscious.
Oh, I not only do I not disagree with that, I think that actually is the route that starts to lead us towards getting real answers. I think that the problem with humans is that we're far too human.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that we're far too focused on humans to the detriment of other sentient consciousness. So just as a final thing, a lot of people purport to see grays, and so I brought a little picture of grays just for your entertainment. So that concludes the first part of my lecture. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Please feel free to take a Shattered Reality Podcast business card, which are newly minted, with our lovely photo of Ms. Kate Valentine and myself.
More or less.
More or less.